Thank you. Welcome this evening to this October 7th meeting of the Ascension Parish Council in our historic Donaldsonville Courthouse for the first time in quite a while. It's wonderful to be here, to be together, to have the opportunity to see each other and actually maybe even shake a hand every now and then. I'm sneaking in a hug or two. So thank you all for being here tonight. I would like to call this meeting to order, and in doing so, I'll ask Coach if he would please deliver the invocation followed by the pledge.
Let's bow our heads, please. Most Heavenly Father, as we come at this hour in the evening, we come, Lord, to truly say, Lord, we thank you for the many blessings you bestowed upon each of us. We pray, Lord, that you continue to guide, lead, and direct us in such a mighty way. We pray, Lord, for this council, Lord. We pray for this parish of Ascension. I ask, Lord, that you direct this meeting as you would have it to be. Lord God, we ask, Lord, that you look over the sick, the poor, the blind, the hungry, the homeless. Bless all those that say, pray for me, Lord. We ask, Lord, a blessing upon the coronavirus victims. We ask that you continue to bless, shield, and direct them. And Lord God, we want to say thank you more than once. Thank you. You've been very much, very good. In your name we pray. We all say amen. Let me be to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Cinnamon, Chase Melanson, Corey Ogeron, who else don't we have? Travis Turner are all so far not present. I do know that Travis will not be here. And it seems I remember Chase saying he wasn't going to be able to be here. Aaron, did you tell me something about Corey not being able to? No, Monday. Okay, so maybe he will. He may arrive a little bit early. Pardon?
He's not going to be here.
Okay, good deal. I did not hear from him. Okay, we have some esteemed guests in the house, people who've been working really hard, and so I would like to introduce the members of the Ascension Parish Library Board who are here tonight. They're here to be a part of the presentation that you'll see by the administration from Ricky Compton. They are Lisa Bacala, Sandy Scallon, Ryland Percy, Mr. Jay Lemon, and our Director of Libraries, Mr. John Stelly. And we are delighted to have you. Thank you all for your interest in this project. It's amazing to see a collaboration come together, and this is the first of its kind in this parish. So we're very grateful to all of you for everything you've done to make it happen. And Mr. President, I thank you too. Amazing thing it is to pull off a collaboration of this nature. It's the first time, to my knowledge, it's been done in this parish, and we're very grateful.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Okay, there is a public comment sign-in period. If you would like to speak on any item, you will sign a card. Cinnamon has already passed one along to me. And if there's anyone else who would like to make any kind of comment, please go to the podium, get yourself a green or a red card, fill that out, get it to Cinnamon, and I will call on you at the appropriate time. I think that the library presentation and the collaboration presentation is going to go in the President's report. So at this time, I'd like to invite Lisa Bacala, who I know wants to speak on this matter, to come and make her remarks. I think they might be Chairman Henry Shakesnyder's remarks.
Okay, I am here on behalf of Henry and the entire board. First, let me say we are happy to discuss our plans with the Parish Council. We have a couple of great and exciting projects underway. We have the splash park at our Dutchtown facility that we have been working with the parish to construct on excess property to the rear of the library on Highway 73. We are working with Sheriff Weber and the parish and partially funding the demolition of the old school so we can proceed with expanding the mission at the Hickley Wag Center. And for the reason we are here today, we are working with the parish and the OEP to develop a long-awaited complex in Sanama that will house a library and a community center that can also serve as a distribution center in the event of a disaster or an emergency, and the community can take full advantage of it as well. More importantly, we're able to fund these projects with no additional cost to the taxpayers of our parish. As a matter of fact, you voted to renew our millage with a reduction of 1 mil. We are able to accomplish all of this as a result of a well-focused board and efficient administration and staff. We are truly excited about the future of your and my Ascension Parish Library and the service it offers to our community. Thank you for your continued support.
Thank you. Give them a round of applause. Huh? Great work. Thank you all. All right. At this time, item 5, the parish president's report, which I believe the president has some comments, and then Mr. Compton's going to give a presentation.
Yeah, just real short comments. There's the fact I want to give Mr. Compton as much time as possible.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, just want to, note to the residents what it means to work with so many great elected officials in our parish, and the collaboration, the willingness to look at problems and find solutions together. It's just a great time for our parish when all these groups in governmental entities can come together in this fashion to create something wonderful for our residents. And with no further ado, let's get Ricky Compton up here.
He's on the other side. Ricky, welcome. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I would also like to thank the Library Board, includes Chairwoman Cazzo, for enabling me to work on this project. It's one of those goosebump projects that really it's a difference maker here in the community. I want to thank Rachel with OEP. They're providing lots of insight and advice when it comes to the steps we're going to take. And I'd like to thank the Sheriff's Office. They couldn't make it tonight, but they've also been instrumental in this planning process. So I have some slides that I want to walk you through real quick. In 2016, the previous administration, along with the Sheriff's Office and the library, began working on a collaboration that imagined a new library, community center, and OEP point of distribution site in Santa Maria. That project was put on hold and hadn't proceeded past the conceptual design phase. When this administration took over in 2020, there were several projects that hadn't been completed, and we began to analyze the what's and whys of what had been done. The Santa Maria Community Center flooded in 2016 and was torn down. There were plans to rebuild the community center at its previous location, but we didn't think that was the best decision. We began again to have conversations with the library board about the possibility of locating the new Santa Maria Community Center adjacent to the library, furthering our Mind and Body initiative. By collaborating with the library, we can create a partnership that has never been seen before in Ascension Parish. We imagined a facility that joins our efforts to serve the citizens in a way that increases the likelihood that participation and utilization will far exceed each of the facilities if they stood alone. We've been meeting monthly with the library board on a subcommittee of the library on the programming and design of the site. We worked through multiple concept drawings, and we've had discussions with our Office of Emergency Preparation on how the site and building could be designed as a point of distribution site to serve the citizens in East Ascension after an emergency such as Hurricane Ida or the 2016 flood. We've explored the option of upsizing the community center to allow for a temporary shelter space that includes showers and roll-up doors to better facilitate the storage and distribution of supplies during an emergency. The circulation of the site's been discussed with OEP and the Sheriff's Office to ensure large trucks can maneuver in and through the site to deliver supplies and allow a greater number of vehicles to stack and receive the supplies while waiting to receive them. This is the community center side of the facility, which will also serve as an emergency shelter with showers and a distribution location. This could be for linemen or an emergency stay-in-place shelter if residents need to evacuate their homes. There's a common lobby space that'll serve the community center as well as the library, and this is the library side of the facilities. Don't focus too much on the design yet. We're still working through that. But what I'm trying to reflect is these are a lot of different spaces that we're thinking of. The site would also feature a covered area that would serve multiple functions, whether it be for sandbagging operations, distribution of emergency supplies, or recreational programming, be it basketball, volleyball, or pickleball. This is the latest iteration of the building elevations, but they don't yet reflect one of the most exciting features that was decided on just last week. We are well aware of the impacts and implications of building and adding fill in the flood zone, especially in the community of Santa Maria that experienced so much devastation in 2016. Together, we've decided that we'll be building the library and community center on piers and utilizing as little off-site fill as possible. We'll also be exploring the concept of utilizing pervious parking and green infrastructure to offset the impacts of the roof runoff. We're still awaiting the final decision from FEMA to be able to utilize the funds that were allocated after the 16 flood for the Santa Maria Community Center. But in the meantime, we're moving forward, full speed ahead, and we are looking for your support. I'll be bringing an item before the November Finance Committee meeting requesting an allocation from the Mega Infrastructure Fund so we can continue to keep pace with the library and not let the decision from FEMA hold us up any longer. These funds will enable us to begin the construction drawing phase with construction to begin in 2022. When we do receive the final approval from FEMA, the funds from the Mega Infrastructure Fund will be utilized to make the other improvements that I spoke about that are above and beyond the 8,000 square foot community center that we're replacing. So the airnasium, the stage area, again, I'm looking to utilize the COVID money to do the pervious parking and the green infrastructure, so we're going to be working in conjunction with the library on that. It's such an exciting project, and I am really happy that the library board is so on board. And literally last week, we had the conversation about fill and the idea that we're going to have to mitigate and do stormwater and this, that, and the other. And after I left the room, I think it was an hour later, Henry called me, or John called me and said, we're going to build this thing on piers. We're going to do what this community needs and limit the fill that we put in the flood zone. So it's a pretty exciting thing, and I'm really looking forward to being on this team as it evolves.
Wow. Thank you, Rick. I know what a major factor you have played in this, and thank you so much for being a part of it. I was excited when you told me they had decided to put it on piers. It's the first opportunity, to my knowledge, of a public building in this parish being built in such a way that it proves the sustainability and the way and the beauty and that a design like this can have, and maybe it will inspire others around it to do the same and make a huge difference in our community for something other than just recreation, library, and point of distribution. A great example. Thank you so much.
Yes, ma'am.
Any questions?
I have two questions. First of all, is there anywhere to cook jambalaya on site?
So I briefly kind of flipped through it, but one of the slides depicted an area in the back of the building that we're imagining is a gathering space. It's kind of a tiered, step-down mini amphitheater, and it's going to serve an educational purpose because the back half of the property is all wetlands. We would imagine that maybe someday we build a nature trail, tag some plants, and kind of do some biological stuff back there. But yes, there is plenty of jambalaya cooking space.
Okay, good. And on a more serious note, although jambalaya can be very serious at times, I noticed that like last time we had our point of distribution areas, PODs, all at Lamar, while we had OEP here. I'd like to explore, because I thought about this driving by my house, using libraries for that. Because I looked at the one by my house, right on 42, drive-through, same with Gonzales. This one is obviously going to be built for it, but to really spread out the point of distribution areas to minimize traffic, make it easier for people to get there. So just something that maybe we can explore in the future.
Yes, sir. I mean, I honestly haven't been involved on that level of pod sites, but I would imagine the biggest hiccup is manpower, ensuring that you're getting all the supplies to all the locations. The fewer sites you have, the easier it is to deal with that situation, but certainly that's something that I'll tell Rachel to consider.
I think she's back there. Rachel, we thank you for your willingness to participate in this collaboration. Thank you so much. Do you have anything you want to add?
So I think like Ricky talked about, we learned a lot with the flood of 2016. So this library concept with the Sheriff's Office and with the OEP office, I think it started maybe in 2016. I think that I remember that's when it started. It stayed in the planning stage. So now that we can actually see some input from Ricky and design team on that. Sheltering is always pod, point of distribution. We lacked that in 2016. That was something that I think James can speak on, that we were looking for places to hand out. Even people were cooking jambalaya and wanting to give water, that we needed a place. We ended up in shopping centers on the side of the road, walking streets. This offers this side of town. It answers all of those questions. Something that Ricky had touched on too was during a hurricane, a lot of hunkering down goes on with teams, with fire departments, our DPW crews. This also can serve as a pre-stage environment for those folks. They can have a kitchen, have a cot to sleep in, and they have bathrooms with restrooms, so that offers that too. So the space, when it's sunny outside on a Tuesday, is great, but during an emergency, it's so nice to see a project on this side of town that can actually offer so much. So the library's been a great team to work with. They've been open to suggestions from our office. They've been open to suggestions with Ricky on planning and design, so it's something that Ricky and I are really excited about to join in on.
Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you.
Any other questions? Mr. Robert? And Madam Secretary, Mr. Melanson has joined us.
Just to kind of reiterate what Aaron was saying, as far as duplicating this type of process at other libraries, I'd also like to see the whole process duplicated. Obviously, it can't be with the same FEMA fund from a flood, but there's many other reasons or many other ways that I think the parish could look at contributing funds with OEP and with the library board. I was kind of discussing with Coach a little bit, maybe looking at doing something on this side of the river and possibly even involving the school board. I don't know. But I think the more parts of the government that we have in this, the more diverse and the more useful this complex can be. Because just with this one, you're looking at 22,000 square feet plus some more exterior space and other buildings and storage. I mean, we have one of these in each of our communities. Just like you said, a preparation place. It can also be an emergency shelter. And I'm sure that's all going to be taken into consideration with the architecture and whatnot. I don't know which part of the wind zone it is, but possibly look at upgrading just so, because we know we're going to be there for hurricanes and whatnot. But keep up the good work. I'd love to see the collaboration, and thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Robert. Any other questions, gentlemen? John, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but while we're in Donaldsonville, would you like to take a moment and review just a little bit about the Donaldsonville Project?
Thank you, Terry. We are in the final stages of planning our Donaldsonville renovation. This has been a project that's been ongoing for a while now, and we are working with the same architect that we're working with for the Santa Monica project, and we are hoping to start construction sometime in December on the Donaldsonville location. It's going to be basically an entire renovation of the facility. It's going to be a facility that is more than just books, because libraries are more than just books. We're going to have a maker space there where people can have access to technology and be creative. We're going to have a recording studio there. We're going to have the ability to have programs for children, adults, teens. So it's really being remodeled to fit in with the historic district in Donaldsonville. We had a meeting today with Jimmy Blanchard, who was a former curator for Homeless House, to talk about the way we can make the library a museum-like, to provide a history of Donaldsonville. For those people who come to visit the library, they can learn the history of Donaldsonville as well. So it's an exciting program that we're having in Donaldsonville too.
Thank you. I knew you could do that. I put on the spot. I'm so sorry. But we could not miss the opportunity to talk in Donaldsonville about what the exciting things that are going to happen to the libraries here. Okay. At this time, item number 6 is presentations. The first one is going to be delivered by Mr. Cedric Grant, who is not unfamiliar to all of us. Welcome, Cedric. We're so happy to see you. And he is going to present on the water system, some ideas about our water system.
Thank you, Councilmember. And I am so glad to hear about the library's work. They were good partners when I was CAL. One of the best agencies in the parish.
Absolutely.
And I'm coming to renew my library card next week. So I'm here to continue the positive news. As most of you know, I'm basically a retired guy with a lot of time on his hands. So, and 30 or 40 years of knowledge. So I am trying my best to give back to the parish as best I can. So I've been spending a great deal of my time helping small water systems grow and sustain themselves. As you know, the situation in the state, in some parts of the state, is dire. I mean, we have some systems that are totally incapable of operating and the like, and it's just a shame that in America we would be in such a place. Well, you have a good one here. Based on what I've seen, you provide good to fair water service. We need to improve it. There's investments being made. I see them every day. People digging holes and doing what they're supposed to be doing, replacing meters and the like, and upgrading the system. You've made investments, and I'm here to encourage you to continue to make investments, particularly at this time, because it's a very unique time in the country for water. There are serious commitments being made at the state and federal level for water upgrades. Finally, we've come to realize that, there are actually places still in America where people don't have potable drinking water. It's horrible, but not here in Ascension Parish. We're in a very good place, and we need to grow it. So what I'm here to do is encourage you to continue those investments, first of all, and to tell you about a little project I just finished working on. The reason I'm here is because I just finished advising Clark County, Nevada, on their water system. They applied for American Rescue Fund and received $471 million to help their people. They initially decided not to invest a dime in their water system, and I couldn't believe it because their water source had decreased by 3 feet. Lake Mead has now diminished by 3 to 10 feet, and they are now rationing water in Clark County. You don't have that problem. You got plenty of water. You just need to get it to folks here. So we formed a team, and we advised them on ways that they could bring this to their underserved communities. Clark County, by the way, is 1.5 million people in about that much space. Las Vegas is the center of it. Most people see it as that, but it's a bunch of desert where their underserved communities live. So what I'm suggesting to you is that you really need to be leaning forward on being able to get after these state and federal dollars. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity that's coming this way. And you've got a system that could benefit from it immediately and upgrade. You also have a system that has the ability to expand. Not many systems are in that condition. I don't know all of the new council members, but you may know that I ran the largest water system in the state for a few years, and we didn't have the ability to expand the system beyond the capability it has. You have the ability actually to expand the system by half, which is very interesting. It has the additional capability to basically expand about another 1.3 million gallons of water, which would contribute to great economic development and growth here on the West Bank. So it's all positive. I'm just suggesting that you get after it, take advantage of this opportunity as it presents itself. I'm certainly here to help in any way I can, direct you to the resources. I sit on committees for the American Water Works Association and the Water Environmental Federation, and got my ear keenly attuned to this issue, because it is the issue of the future of, I believe, the U.S. and the world, that who has water and how it gets used, and can we all have good, safe drinking water. So I'll be happy to answer any questions, but I just wanted to make sure I conveyed to you. I've been working with Coach Thomas on, getting him information about these kinds of things, and I just wanted to tell you that there's some exciting work going on out there right now, and you should take full advantage of it.
Thank you, sir. Gentlemen? Mr. Robert.
It sounds very exciting. Hearing you talk about this, and I did.
Okay.
Hello?
Got you now.
Okay.
There you go.
It's exciting to see some outside interest or some interest in that water system. Recently, we've been debating whether or not it's even worth us fooling with or looking to sell. I think if we can make some investments and move forward and, possibly get it close to sustainable, that would be
Absolutely.
amazing.
It's close.
And, what I do want to ask you is you're telling us that it's a perfect time to do it. What are some of these grants or what are some of the opportunities that we can help for you or whomever is going to take this in particular endeavor with us to expedite the process and get the most dollars that we can?
Well, Councilman, what you've been doing is important. The 219 program with the Corps of Engineers is a match program, 25% you're in. They're interested in, I'm sure, in continuing with the
That's what we
USDA.
change the meters with, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
USDA is out there, and they always giving away money and never, quite honestly, have enough takers for the dollars an hour requirement match. But what I was specifically speaking on, that's your good foundation. That's the thing that gets you in the room with the federal government on ARPA. ARPA has no match. And they've now put somewhere around $300 billion in place for water and sewer systems in the U.S. in that program. So, you need to be in the queue, tell them we can get this stuff done. I've looked at some of the capital stuff that you have that could be done, and it's right in their wheelhouse. There's nothing that you need to do that's way beyond what it is that the investments are for right now.
Okay, great.
And I think that the end product of that will be that you will have a system that can sustain growth and economic development here. Much more than good infrastructure, just growth follows.
Thank you.
Mr. Lambert.
Been a long time, Cedric. Good to
All right,
see you.
Chelsea.
So the big challenge that we've had, and we having problems with the saltwater intrusion. What would you have to offer, or what's out there to?
Again, that's a great issue that is trying to be addressed right now. Okay, it's going to require lift stations, or it's going to require some pumping, or some other method of getting past the saltwater intrusion. I had the same problem in New Orleans. It happened overnight. Our water intake, we have a water intake in Algiers. Okay, that was getting close, but what really happened is Plaquemine Parish ended up having saltwater intrusion, had to close their water intake in 24 hours. And we were able to assist them by opening, getting another pipe to them. And again, what we talked about here today with libraries, we have to figure out how to cooperate among parishes. Nobody can do this alone. This is too large an issue that was coming, particularly this river, which none of us can predict what's going on. The city of New Orleans bought land in St. Charles Parish 50 years ago in anticipation of saltwater intrusion. So, just some strategic thought, some strategic planning on how to deal and address it. But I think you're first positioned very well. Much better than I thought, quite honestly, as a resident. I live here and, I operate my business here, but as I did the research on where the system is, you're on the precipice of really being able to have a good, stable asset that can help you grow this parish.
Especially the West Bank. We definitely need it. Excuse me, Ms.
No problem, Coach. No problem. Do you have a question, Coach?
No, I've just been talking to Mr. Cedric and gaining a lot of knowledge, and the knowledge that he has, bring it to the utility board and sort of moving forward and looking at some of the opportunities that we're going to have down the line with the money that's coming down from the president for his infrastructure that we're going to need, and in terms of building, moving Donaldsonville, the West Ascension forward. That asset would be a great asset in terms of getting that done and having good, safe drinking water. Having folks, we have a lot of other issues that we may have to correct, but that's a start in terms of having good drinking water in the West Ascension moving forward.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Lawler?
Mr. Grant, thank you.
Yes, sir.
That $471 million caught my ear.
Billion
Billion,
dollars.
yeah. Billion. You know, a fraction of that would be incredible.
That's all you need.
So I guess my question is, what was the process that Clark County used to go about that? Were they able to do the preparatory work, and what was that preparatory work in-house? Did they hire somebody
No,
that specializes in this?
I was a part of the plan. There's a requirement to submit a plan to the federal government on how you're going to spend the money, and it requires community input to all of the things that we all know are important. But I was brought in specifically because of the water challenges that they face, which are fairly unique in the world right now. I mean, the fact that they're actually now rationing water between 3 states from the Lake Mead Reservoir is unheard of. But I mean, it's the future for Clark County.
A lot of people believe it's a future cause of World War III.
Could be.
In all seriousness, water supply.
Yeah.
I guess from the administration side, where are we on this? What steps are we taking to move this process forward, or from the utilities department side?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a discussion we'll have in the utility committee, obviously. I don't know if that's a full discussion to have here about grants, programs, and things. John Diaz is the one that really handles that majority of the time. Since he's not here, I would prefer us doing a presentation to utility committee. I think that would be the proper thing.
I can comment real quick as well.
Sure. Please, Chase.
Tuesday, Coach and Gavin and I had a little monthly meeting, and $300 million with the state. So November 8th, I believe, Gavin, is the deadline for the grant. November 1st, I'm sorry. So November 1st, we will be applying for a grant, shooting for $5 million for early 2022. And then I believe March-ish, in March of 2022, would be the deadline for the second application process. So we're very hopeful that sometime within the next year or so, somewhere between 5 to 10 million could be influxed into PUA.
Sounds good. Let's stay on top of that. It's great. Thank you, Mr. Grant.
Gavin is working on it. Gavin and Ken Dawson, so the original deadline was, I believe, September 20th, but due to Ida and all that stuff, the deadline got pushed back to November 1st. So they're on top of it. They've been in communication, I believe, with Mr. Bacala, Mr. Ed Price. They're all, really, really, really going to be pushing this for us.
Well, good luck to you all and our great success with that.
Thank you. And I see Patrick has eased up here. He must have something he feels like he can add to this discussion.
Just more information. You're exactly right. The water sector program was passed by the Louisiana legislature. We're trying to get that application in. We can get up to $5 million. It requires a plan, but thanks to the 219 work that's been done in the past, hopefully we're ahead of the game, because part of it is readiness. Part of it is need. And so what the state has done is taken their rescue plan dollars, and they've taken them with our rescue plan dollars and said, let's leverage them. They put up theirs. We're going to match up to 25%, and we're going to be able to use that specifically for the water sector program. And like you said, this is just round one. Their first tranche of $350 million for this program is going to be this first round, and hopefully by January we'll get an idea of where we stand with that $5 million. Then hopefully they'll come next session. Representative Bacala hopefully will help us again, and they'll do another round of 350, maybe 450 million. The state has not spent all of their rescue dollars yet, and they know this is a priority, and they're hearing from people like you around the state that this needs to be a priority. So hopefully we're going to be able to leverage all those dollars and really make a big impact on the water system in Donaldsonville.
Thank you. So Patrick, if you need a resolution of support from this body, please don't hesitate to seek that.
Okay, it might not be a bad idea when we submit our application November 1st that we do something like that, just to help the application process. It can't hurt.
Absolutely. We'd be happy to.
Thank you.
Get with sentiment on that, if you will. Mr. President, thank you for engaging with us on this. Any other questions, gentlemen? All right. Moving along. At this time, SSA Consultants is here. They're going to be making some recommendations for amendments to the pay classification plan. Hi, Christelle. Good to see you.
Good to see you all. Good to see everyone in person. It's nice to
Yes.
hear. Loved your presentation, thank you.
She still knows all these library folks. She did our
Just so
strategic planning
excited.
with us. And
It's just coming together, finally.
we're seeing
It's
her
great.
again for the first time, and I'll tell you all, that was an amazing experience. And much of what we're doing today came out of that process. So we thank you on behalf of the library board.
Great pleasure. Wonderful working with John and his team and the board. So I come here tonight with Cody Sozier to present some positions that we would like you all to consider, ask questions about. I think that we are going to take our time on these and not ask you to make any decisions tonight. So I'm here. I'm not the only expert in the room. Patrick, way back in the back. But this represents a lot of work on the part of a lot of people, and so I'm happy to be here, and if we need more information, I'm happy to do that as well. I think that everyone has hard copies of the position descriptions, and I did not bring any slides because that would have been eternal. So if you don't mind, why don't we start with the Human Resources Director. Ms. Casso, are they in any particular order? Does it matter which order we take it in? Okay, all right. Thank you. Thanks. And that way I can keep everybody from flipping back and forth. So the first few pages are an eye test. If the printer was a little bit off, it's very hard to read, but the information is on the individual job descriptions. So we'll start with the Data Analyst series, and this is a series of positions, Data Analyst 1, 2, and 3. Ascension Parish has not had a lot of job families, and I don't think that this was something necessarily that Human Resources or Administration or the Council really saw as the opportunity that I think we feel that you recognize now, which is you can bring someone in at a level 1, you can give them some on-the-job training or allow them to go out and get some certifications, they can move up to a 2, receive, a bump in pay, and eventually, because you have a lot of people who stay with you for a long time, hopefully you would have those people stay and you would receive benefit from your investment, and some of them would actually go on to be a Data Analyst 3. So a couple of the positions we'll look at this evening follow that pattern. So this is a position that has been talked about for quite a long time. You have a tremendous amount of data, and you have more and better data coming all the time, and having someone who understands how to mine that data out of whatever SQL server or database or whatever it is, and then turn it into presentations. I remember a particularly somewhat frustrating meeting sitting in DPW with a group of your high-level people trying to figure out how we could bring presentations to you, showing you through the data trends, and that sounds very easy. It was easy when Patrick showed us things from the Legislative Fiscal Office, and I think he had 12 or 13 people who did that for him. So we don't think you need that, but we do think that you need some people who can help mine the data and interpret the data, and you don't really have that right now. This Data Analyst 1 position starts out in the current labor grade system at a 116, and then, and as you can see, it does have a bachelor's degree, as you'll see on most of these now, and at least some experience in the field with a related associate's degree or 3 years of experience without a formal degree. IT is one of those fields where certifications can be just as important, if not more important, than an actual bachelor's degree. So if somebody comes in already with a GIS certification, we're having a hard time finding those people, but a SQL certification, that's a sort of an added bonus. The Data Analyst 2 comes in at a market comparison rate at your pay classification of 118. That's a slightly higher position. You'll see the qualifications are a little bit higher, 3 years of experience or 5 years without a formal degree. a lot of the same requirements. And then you get to the Data Analyst 3. Did I pass that one? I don't see it in this packet. It is out of order, thank you. So if you flip past the community outreach coordinator and you pick it up right after that one, the Data Analyst 3 comes in at a pay classification of 122, and that is because that person is expected to have a fairly significant amount of experience in their field, 5 years experience or 7 years of experience with an associate's degree and a related field, or 10 years of experience if they have no formal degree, and certainly certifications can help as well. So I think we have high hopes. These positions would report to the Director of Information Technology. Brian helped craft these and helped us to figure out the differences in the different levels. And I'm happy to answer questions if there are any about those.
Gentlemen, any questions on those positions? Mr. Cagnolati.
Christelle, thank you.
Thank you.
Interesting presentation. Just a quick question. How many new positions are being recommended?
The new positions being recommended are the series that has to do with data analysis, the Director of Performance Accountability and Data Analytics, the Community Outreach Coordinator, the Communications Outreach, the Community Outreach Coordinator, and then the Community Health and Wellness position. Those are new, as well as the Drainage Engineer series. The Human Resources Director is an upgrade of an existing position that is in your charter, the Blue Book, and a ratified position.
So what's the total? Not counting the human resources. I know that's an upgrade.
There are,
7?
I thought we were bringing you 7, but I'm not sure how we were counting the 1, 2, and 3, the positions.
And I do want to comment, we want to have these positions available. We don't know what candidate levels that we're going to have. So we're trying to get people in these categories, but we don't know what their experience is going to be, what their qualifications are going to be. So having this range doesn't mean we're going to fill every single one of them. It just gives us that ability so we can actually put people with the right job title, right pay, right qualifications. So it's not, we're automatically hiring all of these people. That is not the intention.
Thank you for that. Mr. Wagasback.
Yes, I'm glad Ruth said that. That was kind of along the lines of my question. Do you feel like this builds into like a strategy for, because I know I hear John Diaz, we talk about more data, looking more, I mean, is this part of a plan that we're going to see laid out where we do start talking about how many of these folks we need to help support DPW, start support these different departments?
Absolutely, yes. And I think when we get to the performance accountability and analytics position, that's another piece of that puzzle. So, so that brings up a good point. Oh, here's Patrick.
Support.
No. We're just rotating, madly. No, but that's a great question, and this really is part of a bigger plan. Since I started, even as a consultant with SSA, we were talking about we need to manage with data, we need to look at metrics, we need to enhance the budget with performance measures. The Tyler upgrades that y'all have heard about, we're in phase 3. Those are all geared towards getting better data and making these metrics, then using them to hold people accountable, hold ourselves accountable, and get better. What gets measured gets done. Data is accountability. So these positions help us get there. Without these, it's really tough to try to ask other people to try to stop and do this type of work and get these things together. So there's going to be a big collaborative effort over the next several months to work with the departments to work on those measures, and then these people would be the ones that actually bring that together and make those actually happen so we can report them to the council, put them in the budget, and then just help ourselves manage better. So it is part of a bigger plan.
Thank you. Yeah, and hey, I'm a fan. The more data and the more we can use, I mean, and not just for us and for running the parish better, but for the public, right? Let them know what we're doing, so.
And the meeting that I described, I think, was after a meeting that happened after a finance committee where there was some feeling of why can't we produce the kinds of things that the council wants to see, so.
Yeah, and that's another great point. You just keep setting me up. This is too easy. But open finance, this will be another part of it. There's actually a module that can let us display metrics. So if we can get these, you're right, it's just another step for the public to see what we're doing and to see what's happening, and it's just another level of accountability. So that's another good point.
Right, thanks.
Any other questions, gentlemen? Mr. Lawler?
Yeah, good presentation. I'm really excited about the data aspect, as Councilman Wagsback mentioned. There's a position I'd like to see explored, though, that kind of came up recently in my discussions with people in drainage, is the scheduler planner position. That's certainly different than an engineer, but when I've spoken with people in industry, one of the things that they tell me all the time is planning and scheduling is key. And I know we have issues with that. I try and find out when work orders can be gotten to, and the response right now is, well, I don't know. I have no idea. We don't know. So I think if we could explore that position, that would really be beneficial, efficiency-wise, and to let our public know when we're going to be able to get to things, what they can expect from us. So if that's something, if you could do the same workup that you've done for all these on a scheduler planner position, I'm sure you have experience with it.
Sure, and the data hound is right over my left shoulder. And, you know, there's a tremendous amount of data available in the appropriate places for market comparisons and that sort of thing. What I was going to mention a few moments ago is we will be coming back to you with a total compensation study sometime in the next several weeks. These things take longer than you would imagine. But you will see in a minute when we look at some of these positions, we're creating some compression. The Human Resources Director, for example, comes in above the CAO salary-wise because the qualifications were significantly upgraded, and when you go into the market and you compare it against private industry, which you all compete with in Ascension Parish up and down the river, then you end up with positions that if you want to get talent, it's going to cost you. So I don't want to open the floodgates, so to speak, for a lot of new positions, but thank you, Councilman Lawler, and we'll be happy to take a look at that one as well.
Yeah, and just to add to Christelle's point, as we go through a lot of these positions, and she talked about that compression that's going to be created because of that, it's all about the professionalization of services and what type of services are you trying to offer, and what are the quality types of individuals that can offer those types of services. So as we review these position descriptions, as we do the market comparisons, if you want a more quality candidate or quality individual to hold that job and do it in a way that is good, then you're going to have to pay that way, right? And you're going to have to pay that way against the private industry. So as we went through these job descriptions, we really focused on qualifications, what those would look like, and then how that would be a part of a professional service package. So,
thank you for sharing that. And as Ruth said, when you go into the market, you may not be able to get the top level, but you may be able to get a different level and somebody who certainly has the skills to do what you need to do and can be trained.
If I may ask, how many years ago did we begin this effort?
6. I don't know, when Patrick was standing here, I felt like I was just finally starting to hear what our first study did, years ago. And we talked about having performance metrics for comparison and benchmarking, and it's just been spaghetti. It's just not, people are willing. It's just been pieces and parts that didn't come together. So it's pretty exciting to see it that close.
I'm thrilled, and I know that
I took the recommendations out the other day to see sort of where we were on each one. It's good progress. So
thank you so much.
To be proud.
Proceed.
All right. Let's look at the community outreach coordinator. This position description is a position that was designed in concept. There was recruiting efforts, and a person was hired and put into a project manager position because it was a talented individual. The market was a good time for them to move, and so they came into your organization. Tiffany is who I'm talking about, and what we want to do is create something that's a more robust description of her role so that you don't keep having people in these project manager positions that are very ambiguous. It's fine to have that, but we really want to try and be more specific. So you can see when you flip through this job description, it's an exempt position. The pay classification is 122, but the outreach coordinator is really there to provide a level of communication and sort of two-way communication that you don't always have in a public information officer or director of communications. So having somebody with the background that she has, including media relations and, strong communication skills, I think is a great thing for this parish. We do see that position in almost all of the large parish governments or city governments that we work with. And so I think that this just really captures what HR was looking for when they went out to try and find that person, bachelor's degree in communications, marketing related field, and a minimum of 3 years experience. So, any questions about that particular position?
I don't see any.
Okay. Then let's go past that data analyst 3 and go to the drainage engineering series. At one point in time, we were working on 3 different kinds of engineering positions or series. However many years ago, 5, 6 years ago, you had a few engineers. They've sort of fallen by the wayside. Engineers typically like to clump together. So if you have an engineering department, then you get more engineers in that department. If you're going to have engineers specified where they're going to be in different departments, but they know that they have a role and they have a responsibility, and especially as you get into a PE, they want to make sure that they are going to be in a spot where they can not only have impact, but they will also be a bit protected and not just sort of hung out there as the only engineer around. So you have a void in engineers. And I will tell you, having watched the yin and the yang at the state level with DOTD, do we have not enough engineers? Do we have too many engineers? How many design engineers do we need if we have consultants doing design for us? I will tell you that consultants perform better when they have people inside the organization who understand what they do and understand the work product. And so you need some structure and you need some professionalism inside of parish government. Now, I still don't think DOTD needs a tremendous number of design engineers. You can't keep up. There's just too much, and you've got to go out in the marketplace and hire help there. But you need somebody who understands what the requirements are and can look at the work product and see if it's acceptable or not. So this just happens to be the drainage engineer series. I think you'll see maybe a transportation engineer, maybe even a utilities one. We're still working on that in the comp study, but these were furthest along. So we put them in the packet with the rest of these. And as you can see, it's a drainage engineer 1, 2, and 3. Drainage engineer 1 is really an entry-level position. Cody mentioned the qualifications. This is strictly a bachelor's degree in engineering and 2 years of experience in a related field. Because they don't really make drainage engineers, oftentimes these are civil engineers or some sort of mechanical engineer that has some reason to enjoy hydrology or modeling and wants to lean that way. So that very, very much entry level, but somebody who has who's bringing something to the table by the time they get here. The drainage engineer 2 goes up to labor grade 127. As you look down through the essential job functions, you'll see they pick up a slightly higher level of functioning and competencies, And then you're looking for somebody who, under education and qualifications, it's really preferred to have somebody with a strong engineering background and 6 years of professional experience involved in one of those fields or similar fields. And certainly someone who has been in a governmental agency or consulting firm working with public works and flood protection or stormwater management is preferred. So that's a nice, if you can find and attract somebody that fits the bill for those, that would be wonderful. Then the drainage engineer 3 is where, let's see. I think it comes after the Director of Performance Accountability. So if you skip that one and go to, thank you, Drainage Engineer 3, now the pay classification goes up to 133. These people are not easy to find. I do think, however, that you can be a very attractive place for someone who wants to work in this type of field. You either go to a consulting company or you go inside a government, because nobody else is going to necessarily have big old fun drainage projects like Ricky Compton coming up here and just sounded like a kid in a candy store. He's doing something that he just loves. And so where do you get to do that? Well, you get to do that in government. So we tried to find, Cody spent quite a lot of time trying to find the job functions and qualifications that really define a professional drainage engineer and what that would really cost when you go out into the marketplace to get it. So again, I think that they are not necessarily, there's not a lot of them around, and I do think that they have a lot of options when they decide to move or transfer, but having somebody with 10 plus years of experience would be a phenomenal thing for the parish. And we also included management experience. We went back and forth on that. That does raise the grade of the position because a lot of engineers don't want management experience. But if you could get one who does, and they could take your 1s and 2s and help them move forward, that would definitely be a plus. So, questions about that series?
Mr. Melanson would like to make a quick comment.
Thank you.
So the drainage engineer, I believe, is very important. We have a lot of drainage ordinances that refer to the parish drainage engineer, and that position doesn't exist for us now.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
and this is something, over the last few months of all the drainage discussions we've had, one thing I think we agree upon is that we need someone on our side looking out for our best interests, verifying
Right.
what other data that we're paying, consulting and engineering firms to do, and some checks and balances there. So I am glad to see this, because I think it's something that we're really, really missing right now.
Yeah.
That's it.
Definitely.
Thank you, Christelle.
Thank you.
Anyone else have any comments? I see several. Mr. Wagasback.
I know we do have, currently, don't we do have a position for an engineer within drainage, because I think we had one to size culverts. I mean, is this replace that, or is this more specific than that one?
I don't think I think right now your engineering positions are non-specific. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah. Mhm.
Okay, so this just
You
brings a
answered
little
your question.
specific.
Yeah. So this one starts looking for, someone with a specific type of experience in floodplain management, whereas if you're going to look for a transportation engineer, you're going to look for someone with a different kind of experience and background. So, and honestly, we do look at pay plans quite a lot, where some governments, especially large governments, just want a whole band of engineer 2s, and they could be this, and they could be this, and they could be this. Just watching how you all have to deal with personnel matters and that sort of thing, it just seems like being more descriptive and specific would help you and help human resources in recruiting efforts. So,
And I guess part of my question is, as we get more specific with some of these, do we eliminate some of the older ones?
that's a good question. And we haven't gotten to that part in the study yet, so stay tuned.
Thank you.
But that's quite possible.
Thank you. Mr. Cagnolati?
Thank you so much. Christelle, just a question. This is something that came up when we were discussing the kitty study they're going to be doing. And as Chase pointed out, we have a lot of drainage ordinances. One of the concerns is how we're going to enforce, code enforcement, ordinance enforcement. And I think that I didn't see any of these job descriptions that included, or position descriptions that included, are they going to be expected to do that, or that might create other positions?
That's a very good question. And, I think some of it depends upon the department that they go into and the hiring manager and what other resources or needs they have for that. So you can always in a position, you can always in a position description add more than, and as you begin to recruit and look through resumes and things like that, and interview.
But it's like you said, these are not.
But
This is
right.
flexible, so
Right.
it could include something in enforcement.
It could.
Okay, thank you. That'll be all, Madam Chair.
And just one thing to add to that, drainage engineers are going to be expected to go on-site and visit drainage projects and inspect the progress of construction work and everything that goes along with that, and hold those groups accountable to the plans that they have been reviewed and approved previously. So there is going to be a level of accountability built into these drainage engineers for those specific types of projects. So.
Thank you, Cody. Michael, did I see that you had a question, Mr.? Okay, thank you. I didn't want to miss you. Anyone else? Yes, Mr. Lambert.
Yeah, thank you. And you can see it's a well-rounded person. I see that has to be knowledge with sewer. So I think the code enforcement and everything else should fall in with this drainage engineer number 3.
Yeah, it should be expected that they can handle just about anything that you're looking for. Right.
Thank you.
I don't see any other questions on that set, so if you're ready, Christelle.
Okay. Let's move to the one that we skipped, Director of Performance Accountability and Data Analytics. We've struggled with the title of this position. The position will report to your CFO. That was something to think about as well, because this is a unique person and a unique position. So what we're looking for is someone who can come in and just immediately be part of the team to do a lot of the things that Patrick described when he was at the microphone, to help, with all sorts of performance accountability across departments, to be able to look at data and advise on that. And heavy supervision, if you're going to have these GIS people, if we can find them, and data analysts, then, this would be the person who really works on that. This is not unusual to Ascension Parish, but we don't do as good of a job of collecting information. You may talk about something, somebody may say, we need an XYZ, and then where does that go, and who sort of owns that, and who logs it in. This person would have a role in that as well. Software integrations, and looking at all types of database statistical analysis and reports, and being able to very easily perform cost-benefit analyses. I mean, you just need that skill set. And you have pieces and parts of it in your team, but this is really somebody who is good at that and quick about it and can turn things around. So pretty high level position, and I think that depending upon the target and where this person would actually fall, you could see them really as one of your top people in parish government. And I would hope that you could find them, and I would hope that you could keep them. If you look at the education and qualifications, you want someone with a bachelor's degree in statistics or information systems, engineering analytics, with a minimum of 10 years analytics experience within a data or IT environment. So this is a pretty significant jump in level, and again, because it's IT, you do see this where experience could be substituted for a bachelor's degree, but in that case, then you would want to see about 15 years of experience, so pretty senior person. Questions or comments?
Any questions on that one, Joe?
About that one.
None that I see. That one's above all our head.
Yeah.
You lost me at the title.
They're going to report to Patrick, so you know that. So let's turn now to the drainage engineer, Director of Health and Community Development. So this is a new position that is pretty exciting for people who get excited about improving health and wellness and social services in a parish, and knitting organizations together like the Sheriff's Office and the library and early childhood education and Head Start and things like that. So this position was actually modeled after the position that's in Baton Rouge that is now housed in the mayor-president's office. It wasn't always housed there, but it's funded through a variety of sources, but housed in the mayor-president's office. And that position has grown over the years into what now is a very high-level position that works across all healthcare institutions, public health organizations, mental health organizations, and really represents, if you will, the city parish government. So the gentleman who's in the position now recently received a grant for $1 million something. So you're talking about somebody who understands, who knows where grant money is, and is really looking to get more out of the parts by pulling them together, the sum of the parts being greater than the whole. And so you want somebody who's pretty seasoned. This isn't an entry-level position. This is somebody who really can hold their own and bring people to the table and help facilitate work. So it's been talked about that this would be sort of a healthy Ascension type of project where you all would be funding sort of the catalyst, if you will. And this is the position that would do that for you. You don't really have someone at this level who can help you do that at this point. So they would work closely with your mental health director, with your public health and community health people, as well as recreation. And I even think, Lamar Dixon, and you just have fingers and pieces in parish government, but there are a lot of other agencies out there who can bring things to the table as well. So when you look at the competencies, it's somebody who is a critical thinker, who can hold their own in meetings with doctors who use a lot of medical terminology and acronyms and understand population health. Every parish has a community needs assessment survey that is conducted every 3 years, and I think there's one in process right now, if I remember correctly, and that can be used as a guidepost to understand what the biggest needs are from a health and wellness perspective of the parish, and then organizations can be asked to step up. You can then track over the next 3 years, are we moving the needle, are we making a difference with that? So I think that, the vision is that this person would really help develop this into something that you could be proud of. In other parishes, I wish Miss Backel was here. She could go home and tell her husband this. in other parishes, they draw down state money and federal money. And so what you get is a very robust, integrated behavioral and medical health service for people that's offered, that's accessible at various locations in the parish. And I think, our advisors have told us that might take 7 years, 5 to 7 years to really get to that point. But you have a lot of the raw material to get you there. Jefferson Parish is probably the best example that we could find. So, again, this position is rated at a 133 because of the type of individual and the broad nature of the position. And I was trying to see, this is one of the ones that really creates the compression when you start looking at the labor grades as they are today. So I think back to, I think it was Councilman Cagnolati's question, when we go back through and try and resort and figure out a logical labor grade, you won't see some of this progression. But at this point, you either price them to fit into people who are below market, in which case we're spinning our wheels, or we come to the public body and say, hey, this is really what the market is. And so when you see the other positions, they're going to be arrayed around it, because it's been, probably four years since we went and looked at that. So questions about that role or position?
I think there are some. I'd like to comment that, Ascension is a very special place. There was a millage passed in the 50s when I can't even imagine what event precipitated that.
Right.
But what an amazing thing that we have these resources. And if ever we have seen that there is a coordination needed between public health, our government, and our medical institutions, certainly no time like the present to understand that. We have managed to stay pretty healthy in Ascension compared to a lot. So a lot of that because of the coordination that took place between our government, between our medical facilities, Dr. Fresh and Dr. Trevino, and those in our mental health department. And certainly now, having been through this pandemic, we are seeing even more mental health needs.
Absolutely.
This has been dramatic for many of the residents of our community. So I'm thrilled to see this piece. I'm impressed that it's being brought forward. I think it's much needed, and I hope that we will be able to find someone to fulfill this need in our community. Mr. Melanson had a comment?
Yeah, I'm gonna kind of echo Chairwoman Casso. So one thing we do not lack in funds in Ascension Parish is for health and mental health. I believe our health department has roughly $13 to $15 million surplus right now. And over here on the West Bank in their special district, I think they have $25 million in assets, not cash, but assets. And the Prevost Hospital isn't, in my opinion, isn't up to par what it can be. The services that it can really offer. So it's almost at a point now we have more money than we do vision for healthcare in the future, and we really need to expand upon that. And it needs to start. So I know a bunch of us have taken several trips to the unbelievable $80 million wellness center in Thibodeau. Of course, we're not looking at anything on that much of a scale, but obviously something sized down to where, and it would be nice to be here in the city limits, within walking distance. A walk-in clinic, a little fitness center. They got a little indoor track. You can, cardiologist, you can get checkups and all that stuff. Like we're already really beating the door on the early childhood education over here, and healthcare is just as, if not more important.
Right.
Without those two, the West Bank is never going to be all it can be.
Yeah.
So I haven't had time to look at all of this before today. We just got it late yesterday evening, and I haven't had time. But this is, to me, the most impressive part of your presentation. because it's well needed.
I agree.
So, yeah, very
Can do a
excited.
lot.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Wagsback and then Mr. Robeck.
Yeah, so no, I'm excited also. I'm just gonna make a general comment about all these positions as we talk about this. Some of these positions are pretty highly paid, so can we also incorporate in these further discussions about maybe what the org chart looks like today? What are we going towards? Are these duplicating current positions? I see some vision embedded in this, and I think that's good, but I think we also want to tell the public we're gonna have some more higher paying positions, so are they shifting another position just to have a new direction, which I think is good, but I think we want to definitely tell that story that we're not creating, all these highly paid positions and, it's gonna, so, yeah, my question. Here comes Patrick again.
Here comes Patrick.
Great. Can I say it's a good point again? I think that's number 3. No, but we're working on those org charts.
Okay.
And I think there was a question earlier about, are these all new? Many of them may be new titles, but some of them are budgeted. So we can differentiate between those. We have a GIS and a data analyst position budgeted. We didn't have the data analyst position, but it has been budgeted. It's even budgeted this year. The outreach coordinator is a position that was budgeted, but again, it's a different title. So we can provide that information so you know exactly how many net new positions, how many are already budgeted, because there are several that are already budgeted. And we'll get that for you.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick. Mr. Robeck.
Yes, I think this is a very important position. I'd like to see, with today's climate especially, I have a few different points that I think pretty much create a cycle that is very easy for the public to fall into. I mean, we have social media, and there's a lot of good things to not just social media, but all around. But it's also a very convenient way to babysit and not have your kid, and kids kind of get involved in it. They don't go outside, they don't get exercise. They become way more involved. That their world becomes not reality, but whatever everyone or anything makes them feel on social media. I think if we had someone to bring the mental health aspect of it, and even to the extent that those types of situations, they make a culture of, I guess, a perfect culture for someone that has a drug problem. They use something like that to not have to deal with the real life whenever they get it. Because guess what? Whenever you get off of social media, you have bills. You have real life. You have real things to deal with. And that's another way that feeds into that. The nutrition, the diet, the exercise, it's something that, diet is something that I think is huge, that so many people don't really understand the effects that it has on you physically through all of everything, from the top to the bottom. And I feel like especially with everything going on with the opiates and everything going on with, this isn't just our problem with the bullying and the social media and the suicide rates and everything involved to that with our childhood and even adults. So I think it would take someone like this to bring all of those together and get funds from the federal government, from the state government, and let's figure this thing out.
Yeah.
I think they should easily be able to pay for themselves.
Yeah, I think your comments are very timely and appropriate, and some of you may know this, but you're a wealthy parish. We compare you to the North Shore in St. Tammany Parish, I would say frequently. And their number one problem a few years ago was suicide among young people, and suicide among affluent white males who were married and had families, and it was tragic. So I think, the world's tough. That was before the pandemic.
That's what I was going to say, not to mention,
Right.
The pandemic. That's a huge, it just magnified everything.
Right.
And that brings up my other point of domestic situations. We need to, and there are places for help and reaching out, but we can do so much more.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Patrick?
I tried to get him to
Ron,
give the whole
Ron.
presentation, but I don't know, I didn't bribe him.
If I may, while I'm thinking about it, Mr. President, as soon as we can, could you get back with us on the opioid settlement and where has Mr. Ligier contacted us? He was representing Ascension Parish, and I saw an article in the last day or two about the settlement having been reached, and that he would be reaching out to each parish. So we need to follow up with Mr. Walt Ligier relative to that. It just reminded me of it when Mr. Robert mentioned it. Thank you.
And that could be a game changer, that's huge.
Absolutely, each parish will be, according to what I read, afforded so many dollars from the settlement. It's going to be transferred from the state to the local area. Go ahead, Mr. Marcel, go right ahead.
While we're going through the org chart, are we also critiquing it for maybe old, outdated, positions that we don't utilize anymore, like to kind of piggyback on what Dara was speaking of, like, something that, it's been in there for 20 years, we haven't had anybody in 10 years, we don't need anybody, and maybe striking that through to where this org chart doesn't look quite so long?
Cody's spending 12 hours a day looking at your stuff, so I'm not the person to answer that.
So one of the things, as we're doing this compensation study, is whenever we look at each position, one of the things that we look at, we talked about qualifications already, but sometimes I'll notice things are supposed to be high level, but have real bare minimum kind of stuff that are included on the job description or included on the position description or qualifications. And I'll kind of make a note on the side, this probably needs to be analyzed a little bit more, as in is it functioning in this capacity? Is it functioning in a different capacity? So I guess in that sense, we're trying to look at that as we go through each position and try to make those sort of notes on the side. And then on the flip side of that, as we talked about earlier, with the professionalization of services and things like that, there were a lot of position descriptions that were updated, fairly recently, as far as I can tell. With revision dates and stuff like that, which is good, and it helps us in our analysis, because then at least we know that somebody looked at it recently. So, and then you can tell because they're more specific and they have more directed activities. So, thank you.
Mr. Wagasback.
Yeah, so with us going, into more technology, data, metrics, I know on other websites we've looked at, Sugar Land, Texas, they have head counts and payroll totals. No reason we can't do that. Again, not for me. It is for me, but for the public, just to, and then when it goes up or goes down, we tell that story. Why, what services are being cut out or what services are no longer needed. It just helps tell a story, for sure. So I was just going to make that one comment.
Yeah. Is this budget?
And all that.
We're doing this budget. Okay, good. Stay
Still,
tuned.
is that all of them?
No, we have a human resources director.
The one we really got here to deal with.
That's right. I just couldn't wait to do this one. I was so excited. It looks like probably any other director of human resources, so that may not get you that excited, but the position that you had was rated so low compared to what truly a competent human resources director who's going to have the breadth of responsibility that yours has to keep you all out of trouble. Federal laws that they have to keep up with and the different regulations have just multiplied over the past few years and are continuing to do so. So I think this job description and the competencies that are needed, as well as the education and qualifications, will serve you very well. As you can see, that you're really looking for, and I caught these discrepancies the other day, and we'll get this fixed before we bring this back to you again. We were going between 5 and 10 years of experience and 3 or 5 years in supervision. But, you're really going to benefit if you can get someone who's had significant experience with a large organization and understands how to handle the things that are just normal in big organizations, but they're overwhelming to people who have not seen that before. either a master's degree or, really deep experience in the kind of fields that you need them to be in. We do on here require human resources certification. There are two. We prefer one over the other, but they're both adequate and good, and it shows that someone has at least the bare, minimum framework and knowledge. So when this position was brought out for market comparison, where the market mean in this area is about $114,000, which means that you go up and down about 20% to get that salary range. But we found people in the plants who were earning exorbitant amounts of money as human resources director, just because of the risk and the ability to shelter the organization from a lot of risk. So I think that, I feel very good that you would be able to get someone who is very qualified at that level, which you need. That needs to be a key strategic position that your administration can lean on. And when they bring things to you, you will know that they are done the right way.
Thank you, Christelle. I think we go back about 8 years on that one.
At least.
I've been trying to, I'm sitting here going, okay, how many years ago, which administration? I do believe it was 8 or 9 years ago.
It was.
That we had the first discussion about more professionalism in our HR department, how desperately it was needed. So there's two things that I've taken out of all of this, and I want to mention them. First, I'd like to ask you, Christelle, to bring us those 13. I think there were recommendations that you made to us several years ago, and let's look at them again, see what kind of progress we have made, and hold ourselves accountable. And the second thing I'd like to say is that the fact that a new administration and its leadership embraced those early recommendations, those desires for professionalism, to upgrade the talent at the top of our organization so that the organization would function in the way that our public deserved it to function. I give you all the kudos for having done it. I know it's not easy, and it is, the culture has to change for these positions to be welcome, but I genuinely believe that we are there. We have the leadership in place to make it happen, and we have paid for and worked with Christelle and her team for years to get it right. So I'm going to beg my fellow councilmen to help us to proceed. I'm sure there are going to be questions over the next weeks about these positions. We can have those discussions, look forward to those, but what you are recommending takes us to another level of professionalism that our citizens deserve. We have the funds, and we need to get it done. Sad that it's taken 8 or 9 years to do it, and I'll repeat myself when I say that this administration taking on that leadership role is much appreciated. Any other comments or questions, Joan?
I see Patrick smirking over here talking about all the new talent.
Yeah. Well, look, we had some amazing talent in our organization for a long time, but we were missing some key people, and I appreciate very much that we're trying to find out who they are and where they are, and we're going to hire them.
Yeah, Madam Chair, if I may, I have just a comment.
Please.
Yeah. This is where y'all play the critical part. This is where y'all join the administration and look at hiring superstars, altering these job descriptions, altering these pay scales so that we can go get the best and brightest. We can compete with the private sector because we haven't been able to of late. We can grab a retiree every once in a while, but they're not out there like Patrick is. They're very special when we can bring on an individual like that. And so this is where y'all join with us in upgrading parish government. and I just wanted to make that point. So thank you for the comment, but y'all paid a critical point even before this administration was in on pushing those previous recommendations. And it's something that we looked at when we did our transition. It's going, and we had SSA come in and do that to our transition team to go over those, look at those progresses. Love to visit that again, see where we are. Let's take a look at that and keep pushing, because this is where we all do this together to bring parish government to another level. So thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay. Now to the important stuff. A coach wants to bring up an item that's going to be going on over here in Donaldsonville. So, Coach, if you'll take this opportunity to share that information, and then we'll get to the really important stuff, which is when are we going to trick or treat?
I just want to, young lady with the parish government itself, she has some flyers here that'll be a safe and healthy family event presented by the parish of Ascension and join hands with Lady of the Lake. This will be Saturday, October 16th, starting at 9 a.m. to noon, and it'll be at the Frank Sotil Pavilion on T-Wood Drive, right next to the Lemon Center. And the activities that they'll have is they'll have the free healthy snack, they'll have a DJ, exercise classes, strategic for coping with the pandemic, and more things that they have out there. So I just wanted to announce that and let everyone know all are invited. Everybody's welcome to come out.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Ms. Chair.
Item 7A, approval of trick-or-treat date and hours. Sunday, October the 31st, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. The chair would entertain a motion. I have a motion by Mr. Cagnolati, a second by Mr. Mason to approve that date and those times. Sunday, October the 31st, 6 to 8 p.m. Please put those little ones in reflective gear. Item B, a resolution to temporarily change the polling location for Precinct 39 at the Dara Community Center to the... I have a motion by Mr. Melanson, a second by Mr. Cagnolati. Any questions? Any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes, and I don't have a gavel, so bang, bang. Item C, approval of a cooperative endeavor agreement between the Ascension Parish Assessor, the Sheriff, Government and School Board, Ascension Parish Government and School Board to more efficiently and effectively identify, locate, map, and enforce homestead exemption and freeze violations, and monitor, track, and analyze trends to prevent future violations. There is a name change of the company that we have been associated with to True Roll, and Mr. Michael Sarver is here to take any questions you all may have. This is a renewal of a contract, I think, or just the recognition of the fact that the company has changed names, and so the contract needed to be updated to reflect that name change.
Motion.
Have a motion by Mr. Melanson, a second by Mr. Cagnolati. Are there any questions? Any objections? Hearing none, thank you for being here, sir, but you're done.
Thank you. All right, have a good night.
Item D, renewal of a master contract for professional services.
Motion.
Have a motion by Councilman Melanson, second by Councilman Robert. Any questions? Any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes. Item 9, item 8, committee recommendations. There's a report attached, and who is going to be delivering those?
Madam Chair,
Yes, Mr.
in
Cagnolati?
the absence of Corey Orgeron, who's our chairman, I'm the vice, so I'll be giving the report.
Thank you, sir.
All right. Personnel Committee met on September 21st, 2021. Interviews were conducted and the following recommendations are being made. Fire Protection District 2, 2-year terms. Mr. Malcolm Dugas, Jr., for a reappointment.
Motion.
Have a motion by Coach and a second by Mr. Mason to reappoint Mr. Malcolm Dugas.
Second, Mr. Larry Zarang for reappointment.
Motion.
Motion.
Have a motion by Mr. Melanson, a second by Mr. Thomas to reappoint Mr. Zarang.
And third, Mr. John Roby, reappointment.
I have a motion by Mr. Mason, a second by somebody over there, Mr. Wagasback, to reappoint Mr. Roby. Are there any objections? Hearing none, those gentlemen are reappointed.
For the Waterways Commission Board, a 2-year term, Gina Landry for reappointment.
Motion.
I have a motion by Mr. Malonson, a second by Mr. to reappoint Gina Landry. Are there any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes.
Ascension Parish Mental Health Board, 5-year terms, Tana Comrie for a new appointment.
Motion.
Second.
Have a motion by Mr. Malonson, a second by Mr. Mason for a new appointment of Ms. Tina Comery. The next one, John?
Okay,
We'll vote.
Sheila Madsen for a new appointment.
Motion.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Thomas and Mr. Malonson as a new appointment for Sheila Madsen. Are there any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes.
Next is the West Ascension Parish Hospital Service District Board for 3-year terms, Michael Hirsch for a reappointment.
Motion.
I have a motion, motion by Mr. Thomas and a second by Mr. Malonson.
And second, Mr. John Marshon, reappointment.
Motion.
I have a motion by Mr. Thomas,
Second.
second by Mr. Mason to reappoint Michael Hirsch and John Marshon. Are there any objections?
No.
Hearing none, that motion passes.
Ascension Utilities Board District Number 1 for a 5-year term, Clinton Swan, a new
Motion.
appointment.
Second.
Have a motion by Mr. Thomas and a second by Mr. Malonson for Mr. Clinton Swan, a new appointment. Are there any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes.
And finally, Planning and Zoning Commission for a 2-year term, Wade Schexnayder for
Motion.
reappointment.
Have a motion by Mr. Malonson, a second by Mr.
If
Lawler.
it would, it says reappointment, I think
I think it's a new term.
Yeah, he's a new term.
Yeah,
New term.
Yeah, so we need to make sure we,
And Madam
Note
Chair,
that.
if I may comment, I think Jason Michael here, and Corey and I, and Coach, we are impressed with the quality of the people, especially like the mental health. Those 2 ladies are both mean social workers, dedicated to what they do, wanting to contribute to the parish. And we know the pay is not the greatest. So
exactly.
we appreciate the interest, and we encourage all citizens to volunteer. It's a way to give back and get involved with the government, and we appreciate it.
Thank you. So I have a motion and a second to appoint Mr. Wade Schexnayder to a new term on Planning and Zoning Commission. Are there any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes.
That concludes the report, Madam Chair.
You did good. I've messed up at least twice.
I'm going to comment at this point. I want to say something to all of you. The last meeting that we had, I felt like I came out of the fog. It had been a year since I had had a very serious bout with COVID. And on all those meetings afterwards, I just never felt like I could perform, I could get it done. I couldn't say things as quickly as I needed to say things and think about the order. I felt like every meeting was a disaster. I'd call Cinnamon afterwards and say, I'm so sorry, I couldn't keep it together. So I thank you for your patience with me, and I'm really thrilled to feel like my brain's working again. It's really been a good feeling for the last couple of meetings, so thank y'all all very much. And you're a helpful group, too, by the way.
Ms. Terry, I often say, tough times don't last, but tough people do.
Well, thank you for that.
You're one of the tough ones.
Thank you for that, Coach. Thank you for that. Okay, so let's go on to the public hearing of ordinances. 9A, reading of an ordinance to amend the Ascension Parish zoning map from rural to mixed use 2, zoning review IDPZ 2693.21, Lot A-1 for Michael C. Tomplay, located on the south side of Louisiana Highway 30, approximately 2,000 feet east of South Pepera Hodgson Road. Mr. DePatie.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. This ordinance amends the official zoning designation Lot A1, being a re-subdivision of Lot A, formerly a portion of the Michael C. Tomplay property, per attached legal description from rural R to mixed use 2, MU2. This rezone is identified as rezoning, zoning review IDPZ 2693.21. Whereas Ascension Parish is a local governmental subdivision as defined by Article 6, Section 44 of the Louisiana Constitution, of 1974, and whereas the parish of Ascension is the governing and responsible body over the zoning and regulation within its jurisdiction, and whereas Article 6 of the Home Rule Charter of Ascension Parish, adopted May 4th, 1993, identifies process and manner in which to adopt ordinances regulating the lands of this parish, and whereas the official zoning map of Ascension Parish was last adopted on March 8, 2016, and whereas the parish council reserves the authority to make changes to the official zoning map by ordinance, and whereas this request has been processed in compliance with the procedures set forth, be it ordained by the Ascension Parish Governing Authority that the official zoning map of the Ascension Parish, Louisiana is amended to reflect the property identified in Exhibit A as Mixed Use 2 as official zoning designation severability in the event that any portion of this ordinance is ever held invalid or unconstitutional for any reason by any court of competent jurisdiction over it, such portion shall be deemed a separate, distinct, and independent provision and shall not affect the validity of the remaining portions of the ordinance. Effective date, this ordinance shall be in full effect as permitted by law. Exhibits A, legal description, B, plot map, C, aerial zoning map. Adoption, this ordinance having been submitted to a vote, the vote thereon was as follows.
Motion to open public hearing.
I have a motion by Mr. Melanson, a second by Mr. Cagnolati to open a public hearing. I have a motion by Mr. Robert, a second by Mr. Cagnolati to close the public hearing. I have a motion by Mr. Melanson, a second by Mr. Mason to move the ordinance. Are there any questions? Any objections? Hearing none, motion passes. Item D, reading of an ordinance to amend Chapter 13, occupational licenses, taxes, and regulations to regulate the establishment and operation of outdoor shooting range facilities. Mr. DePatie.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Purpose, to amend the Ascension Parish Code of Ordinances, Chapter 13, occupational licenses, taxes, and regulations to add Article 14, outdoor shooting range facilities, Section 13-192 through Section 13-203. Whereas Ascension Parish is a local governmental subdivision as defined by Article 6, Section 44 of the Louisiana Constitution of 1974, and whereas the Parish of Ascension is the governing and responsible body over consolidated utilities district within its jurisdiction, and whereas Article 6 of the Home Rule Charter of Ascension Parish adopted May 4, 1993 identifies the process and manner in which to adopt ordinances regulating the lands of this parish, and now therefore be it ordained by the Ascension Parish Governing Authority that the Ascension Parish Code of Ordinances of Ascension Parish, Louisiana, is amended to add Chapter 13, occupational license, taxes, and regulations, Article 14, outdoor shooting range facilities, Section 13-192 through Section 13-203 as more fully described in Exhibit A attached here to and made a part hereof. Severability, in the event that any portion of this ordinance is ever held invalid or unconstitutional for any reason by any court of competent jurisdiction over it, such portion shall be deemed a separate, distinct, and independent provision and shall not affect the validity of the remaining portion of the ordinance. Effective date, this ordinance shall be in full effect as permitted by law. This ordinance having been submitted to a vote, the vote thereon was as follows.
Thank you. And I want to take just a moment and thank the sheriff for his help with this. I want to thank the shooting club here in Donaldsonville and Mr. Robert Burrow over on the East Bank who does 4-H shooting and for their input in this process. And we are very grateful to them. I think we have a very good piece of legislation here. So the chair would entertain a motion to open the public hearing. Have a motion by Mr. Melanson, second by Mr. Mason to open the public hearing. Have a motion by Mr. Melanson, second by Mr. Cagnolati to close the public hearing. Have a motion by Mr. Cagnolati to move the ordinance. Have a second by Mr. Melanson. Are there any questions? Any objections? And hearing none, that motion passes. Thank you.
Go into executive session.
I have a motion and a second to go into executive session. Senator, if you'll do a roll call, please.
Councilman Thomas?
Yes.
Councilman Robert? Councilman Lambert?
Yes.
Councilman Melanson?
Yes.
Councilman Lawler?
Yes.
Councilman Wagasback?
Yes.
Councilman Cagnolati?
Yes.
Councilman Mason?
Yes.
Chairwoman Casso?
Yes.
Motion to reconvene.
Have a motion by Mr. Malassaw and second by Mr. Mason, I think, whose voice I heard, to reconvene.
I'd like to make a motion for legal to approve the settlement.
Have a motion and a second to approve a property, I think it's a property
property
damages
damage
settlement
For
for
$18,000
$18,000.
US dollars.
Yes. Are there any questions? Any objections? No. Hearing none, that motion passes. And Mr. Robert had a motion to adjourn. I think it found 10 seconds, and or almost that many seconds, and we're ready to go. Thank you, gentlemen and gentlemen.